Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cutting straight through all the noise and really ditching that outdated diet advice to build a truly optimized morning.
We're tearing down one of the biggest nutritional myths out there, the whole carb-heavy breakfast model.
And we're focusing entirely on metabolic optimization. We took a whole stack of your sources, looking at everything from neuroendocrinology to satiety research, including some excellent analysis from sundry.com.
And the core finding really is that breakfast isn't just about energy.
No, it's about a much more powerful concept. The experts are calling it metabolic programming or even metabolic stewardship.
And you know that famous phrase, breakfast is the most important meal of the day?
Everyone knows it.
Right. But what's fascinating is where it came from. It wasn't medical advice. It was actually coined during a hugely successful 20th century marketing campaign.
To sell cereal, I assume.
Primarily to sell cereal. So
Yeah.
for decades, we've been chasing a marketing slogan instead of, hard scientific criteria.
So our goal today for you is to give you that precise scientific blueprint for the most effective breakfast.
The one that actually controls your hunger, stabilizes your energy, and really improves your metabolism all the way until lunch.
Exactly. So the mission is to move from just passive eating to active metabolic architecture. And we're going to distill how to build that morning meal, focusing on high protein strategies.
And there's one single non-negotiable metric we found across all the sources, isn't there?
There is. It's the anchor point for
Yeah.
this whole deep dive.
Yep.
You need to hit a specific protein threshold of 25 to 30 grams.
That's the magic number.
Okay, so let's unpack this because this is the classic question. Why is it that a sugary pastry or a big bowl of cereal leaves you feeling completely ravenous
Sticky, foggy.
just 2 hours later, but a substantial meal of, say, eggs keeps you perfectly satisfied? It's so easy to blame a lack of willpower.
And it's never about willpower. Satiety is not a measure of your willpower. It's a neuroendocrine equation. It's controlled by your GI tract.
So it's biology.
It's pure biology. That feeling of hunger is driven mostly by ghrelin, which you can think of as the dinner bell hormone.
Right, it's produced in the stomach.
Exactly. So a high-performing breakfast has one primary job.
Mm-hmm.
It has to forcefully suppress ghrelin for a sustained period.
Okay, so if we're turning that hunger bell off, how do we flip the fullness switch on?
We do that by activating two crucial gut hormones, peptide YY, or PYY, and GLP-1.
And these are released from the gut and they signal to the brain.
They send a powerful direct signal to your brain that says, you are satiated, stop eating.
This is where protein comes in, right? This is its unique superpower.
It is. Pound for pound, protein is the most potent macronutrient for stimulating a really robust release of PYY and GLP-1. I mean, way more than a meal of the same calories that's all fat or rapid carbs.
And that potent hormonal response is why protein is the key to sustained satiety, not just feeling full for 20 minutes.
Which brings us back to that magic number. I think the evidence in the source material was really strong on this point. It's about hitting a minimum dose.
It is. We have to emphasize this. 25 to 30 grams of protein seems to be the metabolic threshold. It's what's necessary to trigger a maximal robust satiety response that reliably lasts 4 to 5 hours.
So anything below that, like the 6 or 10 grams in a piece of toast with one egg, it's just not going to cut it.
It'll likely fail to fully activate those fullness peptides. And that 30-gram target, it's not just about staving off the munchies, is it?
No, it's also vital for your muscles. After an overnight fast, your body is in a catabolic state. It's breaking down tissue.
So you need to flip that switch off.
Exactly. And to do that, you need a high dose of the right signal. The research highlights the amino acid leucine as the main trigger for something called the mTOR pathway.
So getting a leucine-rich 30-gram dose of protein essentially moves your body from that breakdown state to an anabolic or building and repairing state.
It's the optimal signal to start your day building, not losing.
So we've nailed the hormonal secret. But what about the physical side? How do we physically trick the stomach into feeling full for hours?
That brings us to volume and mechanics. The stomach has physical stretch receptors.
So we need a high volume, but without just packing in tons of calories.
Precisely. And this means you need to understand a concept called energy density, the ratio of calories per gram of food. The goal is low energy density.
So like a dense high-calorie pastry is tiny. It doesn't stretch the stomach.
Exactly. It leaves your stomach mostly slack. But a large, fluffy omelet with spinach and a side of high-protein yogurt that's lower energy dense, it stretches those mechanoreceptors, signaling fullness quickly and effectively.
And to keep that feeling locked in, the sources talked a lot about fiber.
specifically viscous fiber. This is the soluble kind you find in things like chia seeds, ground flax seeds, and oats.
And when this fiber hits the liquid in your stomach, it swells up and forms a thick gel, right?
A thick, hydrogel-like mass. And this is the cool part. It acts as a literal gastric brake.
The gastric brake, I like that.
Think of it like mixing cement in your stomach. The contents get so thick that they can only leak out very slowly into the small intestine. This physical slowdown is what prolongs that feeling of fullness, often well into the afternoon.
Okay, but what role does fat play here? I always thought fat was what kept you full.
Fat plays a slower, secondary role as another kind of gastric brake, but it uses a different messenger. When fat hits your small intestine, it triggers the release of cholecystokinin, or CCK.
And CCK also tells the brain to slow things down.
It tells the stomach to hold the line, essentially. But the sources were very, very clear on this point. Quality matters.
We're not talking about deep-fried foods.
Absolutely not. The goal is to get those monounsaturated fats from things like avocado, nuts, and seeds. They contribute to CCK release and satiety without all the inflammatory baggage of processed breakfast meats.
What's fascinating here is that you can build the most perfect meal, but if you ignore your body's internal clock,
You can undermine the whole thing. You have to align your nutrition with chronobiology.
we're talking about the cortisol awakening response, or CRR.
That's right. Cortisol naturally spikes about 30 to 45 minutes after you wake up. Its job is to mobilize stored glucose from your liver to get your brain and body moving.
And here's the trap. When you dump rapidly digestible carbohydrates like juice or white toast or sugary cereal on top of that natural cortisol peak, you get this superimposition effect.
You do. The glucose from the cortisol and the glucose from the carbs hit your system at the same time, causing this exaggerated, uncontrolled blood sugar spike.
Which then triggers a massive insulin bump, and that leads to the crash.
The brutal crash, researchers call it reactive hypoglycemia. That's not just hunger. That's the mid-morning brain fog, the fatigue, the intense craving for more sugar. It's a vicious cycle.
And the practical solution is so simple. Just swap those simple sugars for slow carbs, things encased in fiber like whole rolled oats or berries.
They release glucose gradually. No spike, no crash.
Speaking of morning rhythm, let's talk caffeine timing. Most people reach for coffee immediately.
Which can be counterproductive. Since cortisol is already high when you wake up, adding caffeine right away can sometimes lead to anxiety or a faster crash later.
So the sources suggest delaying that first coffee, 60 to 90 minutes after waking?
That's the recommendation. Let your natural cortisol wave run its course first. It's a simple trick to smooth out your energy curve and prevent that rapid tolerance that has you needing another cup by 10 a.m.
And all of this leads to what might be the strongest argument for this whole approach, the second meal phenomenon.
This is a game changer. It proves that breakfast is a leveraged investment.
Wait, explain that. How does my breakfast affect my lunch?
The composition of your high-protein, high-fiber breakfast significantly enhances your whole body's insulin sensitivity for the rest of the day.
Meaning my body handles the carbs at lunch more efficiently.
Way more efficiently. You'll have a significantly lower blood glucose spike at 1:00 p.m., even if you eat a sandwich or some pasta. It's profound.
So your breakfast is basically an insurance policy for your lunch. That's powerful. Now let's switch gears a bit to a psychological finding from the University of Otago.
Sensory-specific satiety.
Exactly. This research highlighted the sweet priming effect. It's like you're setting a sweetness alarm clock for the rest of your day.
So you start with a sweet breakfast, even something that seems healthy like fruit on the bottom yogurt.
You will crave and eat significantly more sweet snacks later. You're keeping those sugar reward pathways actively firing.
Whereas savory breakfasts, eggs, cottage cheese, beans, they tend to mute that desire for sweetness.
And they align perfectly with high protein anchors. So you get the satiety hormones and you cut the sugar cravings. It's a double win.
So if we're aiming for that 30 grams of protein, let's look at the efficiency of the best food sources. The data we gathered, including specifics from sun-dried, was really clear.
Dairy is just overwhelmingly the most protein-dense anchor.
It is. Strained dairy is a powerhouse. Non-fat Greek yogurt clocks in at about 17.7 grams of protein per 100 calories.
And cottage cheese is right behind it at 17.2 grams. They're dense, they have slow-digesting casein, great volume.
Now contrast that with a whole egg. It's only about 8.3 grams of protein per 100 calories. A single large egg only has about 6 grams of protein.
So to hit your 30-gram target, you'd need to eat 5 whole eggs.
which is just too high in calories and fat for most people on a daily basis.
And that's why the sources highly recommend the egg hybrid strategy. This is a key takeaway for you. The practical way to hit 25 to 30 grams is to combine 2 whole eggs
For the critical micronutrients like choline,
with a measured half cup or so of liquid egg whites to boost that protein volume efficiently.
and for plant-based listeners, there are great synergies. Tofu is a complete protein, makes an excellent scramble. But for oatmeal lovers, you have to use the protein oatmeal hack.
Because regular oats only have about 5 grams of protein per serving, it's not enough.
So you fortify them. You can stir in a scoop of plant-based protein powder after cooking, or, and this is a great trick, you whisk liquid egg whites into the oatmeal as it simmers.
Does that work?
It works beautifully. It makes the oats fluffier and creamier and adds up to 9 grams of virtually tasteless protein. It gets you much closer to that 30-gram target.
Okay, let's translate all this science into action. We'll give you some specific menu examples from the 10 best high-protein breakfasts outlined in the sun-dried material. Just remember the architecture: protein anchor plus fiber volume.
So for egg lovers, there's the hybrid scramble.
Right. Use that combo of whole eggs and egg whites, scramble it with a huge handful of spinach for volume, and serve it on maybe 1 slice of sprouted grain toast. That gets you to 30 grams easy.
Then there's the simple savory cottage cheese bowl. 1 cup of low-fat cottage cheese, top it with tomatoes, cucumber, salt, pepper, and a sprinkle of high-fiber seeds like pumpkin or flax.
High protein, instant fiber, all under 350 calories. Simple. Now we have to talk about liquid meals. The term the sources used was viscosity engineering.
Yes. The engineered morning smoothie isn't just fruit and milk in a blender. It must have thickeners like ground flaxseed and chia seeds.
Because if it's thin like juice, it just bypasses the gastric brake entirely.
And it won't keep you full. You have to be so vigilant when you're out and about, too. Let's talk about the fake healthy traps.
Oh, these are everywhere. Commercial fruit smoothies from juice bars, for example.
They're liquid desserts. They are massive sugar bombs, often 50 or 60 grams of sugar with all the fiber strained out. It's the superimposition effect in a cup.
Instant oatmeal packets are another one. Tiny portions, loaded with sugar, none of the benefits of slow carbs.
You're way better off with plain steel-cut or rolled oats that you fortify yourself. But look, if you're stuck at a fast food place, you can still execute this plan.
You just have to be strategic.
For example, Chick-fil-A's Egg White Grill is a nutritional standout. It's about 27 grams of protein for 300 calories. Or at Starbucks, you can just order 2 sets of their egg white bites to hit the goal.
And for protein bars, there's a non-negotiable checklist. You have to read the label.
3 numbers to look for.
Protein greater than 15 grams, sugar less than 8 grams, and fiber greater than 3 grams. If it fails that test, it's just a candy bar.
So what does this all mean? We covered a lot of ground here, but the goal is to shift your mindset from just eating food to actively architecting your metabolism.
So the 3 core pillars for you to remember. First, prioritize 30 grams of protein. That's to activate those satiety hormones and muscle building.
Second, amplify fiber and volume to engage that gastric brake, the cement mixer in your stomach, and feel physically full for hours.
And third, respect your body's morning chronobiology. Delay those fast carbs and that caffeine until your natural cortisol wave has peaked.
And by making breakfast an engineered metabolic event, you get sustained energy, cognitive clarity, and real metabolic resilience that lasts. The second meal effect proves it. You're improving how your body processes every calorie for the rest of the day.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you today. The clinical data shows a high-protein breakfast significantly lowers the glucose spike after lunch. So consider this shift in thinking. Is your breakfast truly defined not by how you feel at 8:00 a.m., but by how efficiently your body processes energy at 1:00 p.m.?
Think of your breakfast as the metabolic architect of your entire day.
We invite you to explore the science and start building your own high-protein toolkit.